Is there a feature you wish Genshin Impact would add? A lot of people ask for things like artifact loadouts, constellation toggles, no day of the week restriction on talent and forgery domains, replayable past events, shield health bars, etc. But this video probably wouldn't be that interesting if I just listed off all the things that you see in every Reddit thread. Instead, I just have one thing that no one ever seems to mention. It's a vital part of the game feel for modern action games, but it's still lacking in Genshin Impact. And that is input buffering. What is that? Basically, input buffering is when the game remembers what button you most recently pressed and performs the action for that button at the next available opportunity, rather than the button simply doing nothing if you pressed it too early. Almost every single action game has this, including both of miHoYo's other action games, Honkai Impact 3rd and Zenless Zone Zero. The primary purpose of an input buffer is to help with lag compensation. With high ping, all of your actions will be delayed unless the game allows you to press the input early and then buffers it for you, so that the lag happens during the buffer. But as an added bonus, it greatly improves the game feel because you don't have to rapidly mash buttons trying to get the input to register at the soonest possible moment. Sure, you can pretend that you can do frame-perfect inputs for every action in the game, but we all know that you're actually just mashing buttons like the rest of us, so don't bother. Let's show it in action. Here's a game that everyone praises for its combat, Elden Ring. If I press the button once, I swing once. If I press it twice in rapid succession, I swing twice. If I press to swing and then roll, I swing and then roll. I don't have to wait for the first swing to be over before pressing a button to cue another action because the input gets buffered. Here's the exact same thing in Honkai Impact 3rd. Here's one attack, here's one skill, and here's buffering the attack to happen immediately after the skill. And here's holding attack after a skill to chain right into a combo attack, which is what happens when you hold the attack button in Honkai Impact 3rd. Just for good measure, let's switch to ZZZ. I'll use my ultimate and then immediately start holding the attack button. And here's the charged attack happening immediately after the ultimate because I'm still holding the button. Now, let's show what happens in Genshin Impact. Let's say we want to dodge and then immediately use an elemental skill. If we press the input too fast, it does not get buffered for Xilonen and Mawika. However, interestingly, it does get buffered for Citlali and Bennett. And on Chaska, it gets weird. She doesn't buffer the skill unless she is running forward while dodging. So it would seem Genshin actually does have an input buffer. The devs just neglected to apply it consistently. I tried this on many other characters, and there doesn't seem to be any rhyme or reason to who gets input buffering. Let's show some issues that are caused by the lack of an input buffer. Here's something that happens more than you would believe. During a burst animation, an enemy is doing an attack that will hit the instant your invincibility frames end. Even if you knew the attack was coming, which of course you don't because you can't see anything that's happening during the 5-star burst animation, because the dodge input is ignored until after the animation, there's always the chance that you will be hit without any chance of dodging if you're unlucky. This is needlessly frustrating. An input buffer would ensure that you dodge on the soonest possible frame and resolve the issue. Let's see how the lack of an input buffer slows down a rotation using Noelle. It's possible to attack too soon after using her skill, in which case your attack doesn't happen. That's rare because the skill animation is so fast, but what's not rare is when you want to do your rotation of burst into skill into charged attack, because your skill input won't get buffered if you press it during the burst animation. Anytime you press a button and it just does nothing is bad game feel, and input buffering is the solution. I'm sure many other characters have similar issues. Now here's an egregious example. You cannot buffer anything during a jump. Inputs are ignored until you land. This becomes a problem when you get frozen, because for some stupid reason, the only way to reduce frozen time is mashing jump. That guarantees that you will jump after breaking out, which animation locks you until you hit the ground. So not only are you forced to animation lock yourself at the end of being frozen, but you can't even input buffer something to happen as soon as you land. Everything about this is bad. We need input buffering here, and for that matter, we need more than just a jump button to break frozen status. This last one isn't really an issue, but let's look at bow aimed shots for the sake of discussion. Chaining multiple aimed shots requires precise timing. An input buffer would let you do it perfectly every time. Now, as you guessed, the reason I said it's not an issue is because the game already has a feature for back-to-back aim shots. Doing it the hard way rewards you with slightly faster shots, which is cool. Who doesn't love seeing an Ambermane show off their constant frame-perfect aim shots? There are plenty more examples I could go through if I wanted this video to be an hour long, but that should cover enough to show how an input buffer would improve the game. The current control scheme incentivizes mashing a button until you're sure the input went through, and that's frankly just bad controls design. Even if you think it's cool to have a benefit for timing your inputs perfectly instead of just mashing, the effect is so minuscule that it's not even remotely worth the loss in smoothness of gameplay, not to mention the loss of lag compensation that an input buffer provides. That's why games that are respected for their combat, like the aforementioned FromSoft games, all have an input buffer, and anyone who's played those games can tell you that the input buffer doesn't reduce skill because it adds a consequence for mashing and incentivizes you to put intent behind every button you press. Hopefully that explains why an input buffer is simply good game design. As we saw, Genshin Impact already has some amount of input buffering, it's just inconsistent. It only works on some characters and only on some moves of those characters. That means the code for it is already in the game. The devs just need to apply it consistently across all of the characters and their inputs. And it also means that for cases like aimed shots where we might not want an input buffer, they can selectively not have one just for that scenario, because they are already selectively applying it. I don't think this is too much to ask, and I think it would greatly improve the fun of Genshin Impact combat. This isn't some PvP fighting game where perfect inputs can determine the outcome of a match. It's a casual gacha game, so there's no reason to require people to mash buttons like they're skiing in Starsheet's tribes in order for their rotations to work.